All right, you've got to hear this one. This is an incredible story about a brand that literally came from nothing. We're talking the dusty roads of rural India to take on some of the biggest snack giants in the world. It's the story of how one man, with nothing but necessity as his guide, built an empire that gave a titan like PepsiCo a serious run for its money. So picture this. It's 1982. There's a young guy on an old, rickety bicycle, riding from shop to shop in Rajkot. He's trying to sell these little packets of homemade potato chips. And he's not just being ignored, people are literally shooing him away, treating him like he's nobody. It was just a brutal, humbling way to start.
Now, let's fast forward to today. That same man, Chandubhai Virani, is the founder of Balaji Wafers. His company is so dominant, so powerful in its home turf, that a global behemoth like Lays has been forced to completely rethink how they do business there. I mean, this is the ultimate David versus Goliath story, for real.
So the big question is, how on earth did he get from there to here? Well, our first chapter is called A Boy on a Bicycle, and it's a journey that didn't start with some grand ambition. Nope, it started with pure, raw desperation. Chandupai's story kicks off in a tiny village that didn't even have electricity. Farming was everything. But then, in 1972, a catastrophic drought hits, the worst in 70 years, and it just wiped them out. The family farm, their only livelihood, was gone. Their entire world just collapsed. To survive, their father had to sell their ancestral land. He gave each of his 3 sons 600 rupees. That's it. Can you imagine? That was their entire starting capital, to go out and somehow build a new life from absolute scratch. The pressure must have been just immense.
And yeah, the path was not a straight line to success. Chanduba's first shot at business, selling fertilizer, was a complete disaster. He got scammed, lost every last rupee, and ended up totally broke, jobless, and helpless on the streets of Rajkot. But you know, sometimes your lowest point is right before a breakthrough. A low-paying job led to this totally unexpected opportunity. This was the moment that changed everything for him. And, believe it or not, a cinema became the unlikely birthplace of his future empire.
So after doing all sorts of odd jobs at the Astron Cinema, pasting posters, sweeping floors, you name it, his crazy work ethic got him noticed. The owner offered him a contract to run the cinema's canteen. The deal was simple: pay 1,000 rupees a month in rent, and whatever profit was left over, it was all his.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. While he was running the canteen, he started noticing a pattern. A massive 80% of his sales came from just one single item: potato chips, which people would rush to buy in that chaotic 10-minute movie interval. This was it. This was his aha moment. So he'd found his golden ticket. But there was a huge problem. The suppliers were awful. They were always late, they never brought enough stock, and because of them, he was constantly losing money and missing out on sales. You can just imagine the frustration building up day after day. Finally, after 6 years of dealing with this mess, he made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He just said, enough. He was going to take control. No more depending on anyone else. He was going to make the wafers himself. See, this wasn't just a business idea. It was a solution born of pure necessity. Okay, so making wafers in a little shed at home is one thing, but to really grow, he had to take a massive, massive risk. This next chapter is a real nail-biter. It's about a huge gamble that could have destroyed everything, but instead it forced him and his brothers to become something they never, ever imagined: engineers.
He went out and took a loan for 50 lakh rupees. Now remember, this is the guy who started with 600 rupees. This was a mind-boggling, astronomical sum. He was betting everything he had and a lot he didn't have on building his first real factory.
And just when it looked like his dream was finally taking shape, the absolute worst thing that could happen happened. The company he'd hired to build the plant went bankrupt and just shut its doors, right in the middle of the job. He was left with a yard full of useless, half-built machinery. This is where the story becomes legendary. Instead of giving up, which, let's be honest, most people would have, Chandubai and his brothers did the unthinkable. They personally took apart every single machine, piece by piece. They studied every gear, every belt, every single bolt, and they taught themselves how it all worked. And then, with their own hands, they reassembled the entire plant. Their biggest setback forced them to develop their greatest skill. Adversity literally turned them into self-made engineers overnight. So, with a factory that actually worked and a steady supply of chips, Balaji was ready for war. But how does a small, local brand even begin to take on a global giant like Lay's? Well, the answer is a brilliant mix of smart strategy, local knowledge, and one devastatingly effective marketing punch. And their strategy was like a perfect three-punch combo. First, value. They just put more chips in every bag, plain and simple. Second, taste. They didn't try to copy Western flavors. They used the local Gujarati spices that people grew up with and loved. And third, they expanded their product line to become the go-to brand for all kinds of snacks, both Indian and Western. And this was their marketing masterstroke. You know that joke about Lay's bags being half full of air? They took that joke and turned it into their official slogan, more wafers, less air. It was simple, it was direct, and it absolutely hammered Lay's and local markets by hitting them right where customers felt it the most. And did it work? Oh yeah, it worked. Just look at this. By 2006, Balaji had captured an unbelievable 90% of the entire potato chip market in their home state of Gujarat. They didn't just compete with the big national brands, they completely and utterly dominated them. But here's the thing. The real secret to Balaji's success goes way deeper than just business strategy. It's about a unique philosophy, a company culture that puts people above everything else, a philosophy that would eventually be put to the ultimate test. In today's corporate world, this stuff sounds insane. Balaji has no sales targets, no high-pressure environment. They hire people for their passion, not just a fancy resume. And get this, every single employee, from the factory floor to the office, has Chandubai's personal phone number. They're not treated like workers, they're treated like family, like they own a piece of the company themselves. Now, this kind of success and this unique culture, it doesn't go unnoticed. In 2023, PepsiCo, the parent company of their biggest rival, Lay's, came knocking. They made an offer that represented the absolute pinnacle of corporate success, 4,000 crore rupees, a multi-billion-dollar validation of everything he had built. And his response? A simple, powerful no. He refused. He turned it down. He chose to keep his company independent, to keep it an Indian brand built by an Indian family. He chose his people and his legacy over a massive American payday. Which brings us right to our final thought. From being shooed away like a beggar to refusing a multi-billion-dollar offer, this whole story really makes you wonder, doesn't it? For a boy who started with literally nothing, what's the real value of the empire he built? Is it the money, or is it something else entirely?